It is the Anfield Wrap from a very, 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 very cold Liverpool. It is Neil Atkinson. I'm joined by Ian Ryan, Beth Lindop from ESPN and Ian Salmon to work through, well, a number of things, but obviously first and foremost Fulham 2, Liverpool 2. But we are here in association with Peloton, who are the official strength and cardio partners of Liverpool Football Club over the course of the season, and partnering with the Anfield Wrap as well. And there is a challenge, ladies and gentlemen. John Gibbons has emailed me this morning from a very, 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 very cold Liverpool where he can't get his car to start. He's doing his very best, John. You'll get in at some point, but my God, it is cold. And John says this: to encourage you to get going with your fitness goals for 2026, if you log 3 activities on the Peloton app in the next 3 weeks, you can enter a draw to win one of 3 pairs of tickets, lots of threes, for Liverpool versus Newcastle at the end of the month, which is hopefully 3 points for the Reds. This can be any activity from cycle classes to out yoga to outdoor walks. You just need to make sure you join the Anfield Wrap team on the Peloton app and then sign up to the challenge. Any issues doing that, message John. He's got time on his hands. The challenge will run until the 25th of January and winners will be notified on the 26th. So 3 activities on the app across the next 3 weeks. As we start this off today, it is the 5th of January, so that gives you 3 weeks to do this. Takes us through until that week leading up to the 26th, which is when winners will be notified. That's it, and we are always pleased to be partners with Peloton, so do please go and get stuck in there as well, and it's good for everyone all round to do so. We've got some live shows coming up as well, the AnfieldWrap.com/TAW live. There is 4 of them in February in the island of Ireland, 2 in the north, Derry and Belfast, 1 in Dublin and also 1 in Limerick, and then there's also Australia and New Zealand. That is coming up as well in March, the March international break for that, so do check all of those out. Fulham 2, Liverpool 2, Ian Ryan, it wouldn't have been a pure smash and grab if Gakpo's goal had decided it. But it's a bit funny, I think you can certainly argue 3 of the 4 goals come against the run of play. Maybe Wirtz was a little bit on the cards, Liverpool had 1 disallowed, McAllister had hit the bar. But ultimately, I mean, that shouldn't really quite happen in a game like that, certainly in a game that's 2-2. If Gakpo's goal is the winner, you do feel a little bit like we've got away with one, but you feel a little bit like when we stuck in there, it's such a crushing blow when it goes 2-2.
Yeah, it is. It's another one where I'm coming away frustrated. A little bit numb, if I'm honest. I've said that a few times this season. It's always a worry when it feels a little bit like that, I think. But I said, as soon as Gakpo scored, I said, they won't hold on here. Now, to be fair, I'm watching it in the house on my own, so it wasn't a great conversation, but the first thing in my mind was, they will not see this out. They will not see it out. That's where we are, I think, with this Liverpool team.
Even given the fact that we only had 90 seconds left.
There was a matter of minutes. Now, obviously, they get the throw. I'm not as generous as some people are around the goal. I understand it's a worldie. It's an absolute worldie. But I just think the throw-in, for me, Liverpool are obviously planning for something akin to a long throw, and they've basically put everyone in our own 6-yard box. But Fulham have barely got, I mean, they've got 4 or 5 lads in and around the 6-yard box, but you could see what was going to happen. They've got a 4-on-2 left-hand side. It's almost in a perfect square, so I'm thinking they're definitely taking this short. And obviously they work it, so it falls to Harrison Reed. And listen, I subscribe to the theory that if he has that shot 100 times, 99 of them probably go closer to the fucking moon than the top corner. But he's a Premier League footballer, and you're giving him a free shot from 28 yards. So there is a chance he may get it on target. Or he could slip in Sander Berger, by the way, who's in a really good position to take a shot or put one across the face of goal. So there is that. I just think it's so poor to not get someone out to him. Whether the captain's shouting at someone or whether someone just takes responsibility. Boys, there's a matter of minutes. Just do the right things at the right times and get someone out to him. It's a lad who hasn't scored for about 2.5 years, so he's not used to it in the target, in fairness. They probably don't know that in terms of his goal record. But if you get someone close to him, the chances are he's only just come on. He probably mishits it or skews it, or Liverpool get a break because someone blocks it. But there's no one within 15 yards of him, and it's massively frustrating.
It is massively frustrating. I think, Beth, my other piece of, and you can look at this one or 2 ways, my other issue really, in terms of Ian there sort of referring to being numb, you want to be able to get behind things. I suspect Ian wasn't feeling numb on 55 minutes, but it's worth saying that for 25 minutes before the Gakpo goal, Liverpool haven't had a shot. And that's what we've seen a lot of in this last run of games. Liverpool not offering very much from 70, 75 onwards. So it's worth pointing that out, I think, as something to sort of say about the sides. They hadn't managed to do that. But then it wasn't a game with a ton of flow anywhere. It was a series of things that happen in a football match, if you know what I mean, feeling sort of pulled away from a normal ebb and flow of a game in a really, really weird way. It's not as though Fulham they have a couple of shots in that period, but it's not as though they're kicking Liverpool's door down or pushing Liverpool right the way back. It's a really, really... It's an odd game that it finishes 2-2. Almost in a way as well, like it didn't feel like it had 4 goals in it, and yet this is where it ends up, and Liverpool have to accept it. They have to accept that they probably weren't good enough to win the game on the one hand, but that they've also been very, very unlucky on another.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest frustration for Liverpool at the moment, is that I don't think Fulham, Liverpool have been to Fulham before, and Fulham have played some really nice football, and you've thought, they deserve that result, or even if Liverpool have come away with a win, you've thought, well, Liverpool have got away with one there. And, the first goal was well worked, and the second goal is a worldie. But in terms of the actual football that Fulham played yesterday, I don't think they were particularly great. The same way that Leeds didn't have to be particularly great at Anfield and that they still got a point. The same way that Sunderland didn't have to be at the brilliant best to get a point. They were not saying they were bad. They were just okay. They were good. And as champions, good is the bare minimum that you should be able to handle in the Premier League, and Liverpool aren't doing that at the moment, and that's the biggest frustration. And I think, like you say, that's what makes you so sort of weary, I think, sometimes watching them at the moment, because from 75 Liverpool teams, even last season, earlier in this season, would be peppering the goal. Even if you go back to Palace when they very nearly get a late draw, there it felt like that goal was coming. Liverpool was sort of really knocking on the door against a Palace team who were probably better, certainly at that point in the season, and better than Fulham were yesterday. But it's just not been like that for Liverpool. You've not been sat there thinking, oh, this goal's really, really coming. You think if it comes because of a mistake or a moment of magic.
Or just being offside and it being allowed.
Well, yeah. But I think the manager's spoken quite a lot about sort of fine margins this season, and that I know that frustrates people, but I think basically what he's trying to say, and he's acknowledged himself, is that Liverpool are, that they're not creating enough to get beyond those fine margins. They may be creating just enough to win games, but that's not necessarily, that you're not always going to fall on the right side of that. You're not when you're sort of not creating enough. And you're not defending quite well enough, although I think Liverpool, to be fair, defended okay for the most part yesterday, but you're always leaving yourself vulnerable to a moment of magic, the way that, the Harrison Reed's goal goes in yesterday. And that's the frustration, is I think this season, and the players that they signed, that the whole idea was to try and make games more comfortable, turn 2-1 wins into 3-1 wins from last season. And it's just had the complete opposite effect.
It has. I mean, this is the recurring theme. The manager post-match seemed a bit broken by it, frankly, Ian.
Understandably.
Understandably, but I don't think he's got the luxury of that at this point. I think it's worth sort of saying you'll need to turn that frown upside down pretty quickly, because he's got a set of footballers to get ready for a tough test. But also, as Beth says, as I'd say, this is currently where Liverpool are. You're in a race for fourth. The side last season have finished fourth, won 20 games out of 38. That means there's 18 games you're not going to win, lads. Maybe Liverpool will win 22 out of 38, and if they do, they'll definitely come fourth. But that still means you're not winning 16. And Liverpool, this is the world that Liverpool are in, the coin toss that is being created for them. They're being unlucky, you can make that argument, but they're also creating a circumstance where the coin toss is a valid metaphor.
Well, it's the fine margins thing. I mean, I've argued fine margins in matches for years, and the fact that, all of football, when we had the throwing coach, when Mark was working with us, it was that getting those fine margins to take that little bit of advantage. We've got none of that. We're not taking advantage of fine margins, and we're falling to fine margins all the time. So you need to sort your margins out in some way, because I'm bored of hearing about fine margins from people who are in the position of responsibility. It's okay for us to say it. They can't say it. They have to sort it out. We're just a bit shit. I think that's the top and bottom of it. We are a bit shit as a team. We've got lots of players. Listening to the Pink last night on the way in, and loads of good. I thought everybody was a bit kind to them on the Pink, because I was raging. For me, I'm somewhere between being a bit numb and being more annoyed than I was after the Leeds game. And as you know, I was quite annoyed after the Leeds game because I was stood by here after the Leeds game. So, but I'm somewhere between the two, because that game was won. we'd won that game. We may not have deserved to win that game, but we possibly
the Leeds away
did.
game.
The Leeds away game.
So I thought you meant the Leeds home game. I was very annoyed after the Leeds home game.
I was very annoyed after the Leeds home game. I found myself annoyed after lots of games at the moment, but the Leeds away game, we had won and we lost it. Well, we didn't lose it. We drew it and it felt like a loss. Yesterday, we had won with 90 seconds to go. All you have to do is hold out for 90 seconds. Kind of like, oh, Jesus Christ, we're just finding new ways to lose, aren't we? And somebody should have closed them down. And perhaps if Gakpo had been on the pitch, Gakpo would have been further out from the box. And there should be a man outside the box to cover the fact that these lads are up here. There should be someone. Or to get a break, if you need a break, just to take the ball further up the pitch. There should be somebody else. I still can't get my head around this idea that you have corners and everyone goes in the box. Stick someone on the halfway line, go old-fashioned, it'll freak everybody out. It's we've got so many issues. I don't know what our shape was half the time. I think we had so many shapes that you can't tell what our shape was supposed to be. I think we're finding it hard to break down low blocks, but those low blocks are finding it really bloody easy to break us down because they just wander through our midfield, because our midfield disappears. Our midfield just vanishes into smoke all the time. We've got no formation. We don't know who's playing up front. I'm going to go on a rant now. It won't be anywhere near as good as yours on the pink, because yours was magnificent. But I think it ties in with some of the things. I think I may have said it on one show that I worried about the signing of Isak. I said it to somebody in October when I wasn't doing shows, when I was just theatre all the way through. I said to somebody in the bar that my worry was that Isak was going to be our Faustino Asprilla. And it was the player that we were buying because he was a great player to buy and we thought we needed him. And maybe we really didn't, and maybe it was just unbalanced. And we're an unbalanced side. Wirtz is a fantastic footballer. I think Wirtz has got the potential to be a Dalglish level footballer for us. But I don't think any of us know where he plays. I think that includes everybody behind the scenes at Liverpool. I don't think anyone knows where Florian Wirtz is supposed to play at the moment. I don't think anyone's telling Florian Wirtz where to play. It's just kind of like go out and do what you do. We've got no formation built around anybody. There's nobody who's integral. Under Klopp, here's your three lads who do the work in the middle of the park. Here's your two full-backs getting forward. We've got nobody who can switch a ball. We've got nobody who can play a long pass. We're predictable all over the place. And we have managed to become worse by spending £500 million. I know we haven't really spent £500 million because we've got money in. But I did definitely say on a show a while back that Arsenal did better business than us. They didn't buy better than us. I thought we bought brilliantly. But we didn't. We bought to replace, we bought to change. We didn't buy to add. Arsenal bought more of the same to add and have options. We've bought to a position where we have no options. And I'm sound with the idea of not buying a left winger if it's going to stunt Ngamora's growth. But the thing that's going to stunt his growth most is having him sitting on the bench in the cold watching the game that he can't have any effect on. And when he came on against Leeds in the 0-0, he looked excellent. He was our best player. He was only on the field 15 minutes. Give him a half. Give him at least a half. Start and do something that's going to be a bit different that they're not expecting, because what you're doing is not working. And we can all see it's not working.
Ian talks about switching play. He talks about progressing. I think there's a thing where what's difficult to watch with this side, which wasn't the case last season, and which, you know, I think if you look at a few of our rivals / contemporaries, isn't the case. For me, it isn't the idea that Liverpool aren't playing brilliantly for 90 minutes. It's that they don't look to me like they have an explosive 15 in them in any game. 15 minutes where the opposition are going to be left just sort of with the head spinning. Most sides in this league at the minute can't do more than 15 minutes. You know, I watch other sides. I watch Arsenal and Manchester City, and I think, listen, Manchester City attack brilliantly. I think Arsenal have got a lot going for them, and they're getting better and better. I think in open play attacking as the season's wearing on, I think they're not top class at the very, very highest level. But what they're both capable of is a big 15. And I just don't see that in this team. And there was a couple of instances yesterday where I almost felt like they got the platform for the big 15, and then the big 15 never comes. And that's what I think when you're talking about being normal, I think that's what's hard to watch. You're going, lads, you've got this back to 1-1. You've took the sting out of this now. Now's where you swamp them, and they come away going, Christ, it's 3-1. They just don't have that in them at the minute, and that's what makes them so difficult to watch.
Yeah, I agree. It does feel incredibly predictable. And I think, listen, lots of people have said they're playing with the handbrake on. I think they absolutely are. Even when they were obviously trying to be a bit more, I say flamboyant, but attack with a bit more purpose and desire, they just find themselves on the back of really poor results, which is why he's obviously changed it. And I think he's obviously gone the manager now has gone too far the other way, where you never really even envisaged a 15 like you've just described ever really happening now. It doesn't feel like, I mean, they come out the second half yesterday and there's a bit more purpose, there's a bit more intent for maybe 15, 20 minutes, but not akin to what you've just laid out there. It doesn't feel like that.
No.
But you feel like they might get into the game and they might get a goal. You have to remember, I know Liverpool are missing some players, mainly attackers. Fulham missed 7 lads, by the way.
Yep.
7 lads. I think probably out of those 7, 5 or 6 are in with a shout of starting under normal circumstances. So they're missing over half a team. And yet, you know, you said there, didn't feel like a 2-2. There's only 2 shots on target from both teams. It's almost a nothing game in many respects. And you are watching a lot of nothing games where Liverpool are concerned now. And my worry is I understand to an extent why he goes with such caution for a few games, because listen, you're getting beat by 3 goals by lots of different teams, different type of opponents. So you've got to almost batten down the hatches to an extent. But when does that change? And he's in a situation now where he's got less players. But surely the plan cannot be we just amble through the rest of the season playing like this. Because if they do, if there is no identity, no patterns of play, no intensity in football matches, no cohesive attacking unit that you can hang your hat on, he will not be in a job next season, in my opinion. Even if they get 4, I think he'll struggle to hold on to his job, because people have to have something to get behind. They have to, Neil. And we're doing shows like this, and I'm coming on a lot of these shows where maybe they're not winning those games. I mean, listen, let's be clear, they've won 5 of the last 15, so there's not that many wins. But you're coming on and you feel like you're being, at times, incredibly negative, but you've got to call it how you see it, and you've got to be realistic. And I just don't see, at the minute, how this gets better. And there's been lots of times when they've had more players than what they've got now. And I know you spoke well last night on the pink and stuff, and I wouldn't disagree with any of that, really. I think they've left themselves short in lots of key areas. I think we all knew that. You were on more shows than anyone else over the summer, so it's certainly kind of that theme of you saying that resonates a lot, because you were saying it a lot. But I think everyone felt it. I think we all felt there wasn't enough players in some of those key areas. Now, they may sit here and say, you know what, we still bought 10 players. Now, some of them are fringe lads like Will Wright and stuff. There's a lot to do to get those over the line, and all the ones that left. So I can get that to an extent. But then surely you've got to go again in January, and there's no sign of that. Surely you've got to be thinking, well, we haven't got it all done in the summer, but we've got to go in January. Or you have to make different decisions in the summer with certain players who leave the football club. And I know for some of them, they may have wanted to leave, or the money was good. But maybe you've just got to say, lad, you can go. But it's on our terms, and it's not yet, because Liverpool have found themselves massively short in key areas.
I think Ian's point there, Beth, you know, you go back and you look at these games, you know, it felt like there's been the opportunity to say a corner has began to be turned, and then from there you build on. This is back to platforms. They're getting platforms in games, but then they're not building on the next bit. They're getting some platforms with results, but then they're not building on the next bit. And it just feels to me as though there's a desperation in a really weird way. These players, there's no one you could look at yesterday or against Leeds, in any game really, where you go, X isn't putting it in. They're not up for the fight. If anything, I think they've got this, it's going to be a slog mentality. And maybe that'll shift after the Arsenal game. There's a bit of a break between Arsenal and Burnley. And maybe that's the opportunity for a little bit of a reset around fitness and the approach. But it feels like a slog. It feels like they're finding it a slog. We're finding it a slog watching it. The manager's coming off after the match. Feels like he's been through all sorts. You know, I think they've got to try to get out of that mentality. I'm not saying that's for Thursday, by the way, but they've got to try and get out of that mentality.
Yeah, I think the manager does an interview with BBC Radio Merseyside, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he basically says something along the lines of what Ian said, actually, in the sense of when it went 2-1. He said anyone who's watched Liverpool will know that wasn't necessarily a foregone conclusion that they'd win the game. And you think, well, if the Liverpool manager is not convinced that his team can hold out for 90 seconds after, you know, scoring a last-minute winner, you know, that is a worry. And I am paraphrasing, so, you know, I'd urge people to go and watch and listen back to what he said. But I think that is a worry, and I think that is in the players' heads. I think the fact that they don't defend, they don't sort of rush out to close down or try and be a little bit more proactive for the equaliser is because they're dreading a cross coming into the box, because they know that they've not been good at crosses, and that's, you know, therefore it's like, right, all hands on deck, let's defend this cross that's going to come in. and it's almost like they're preempting, what's going to happen. They're preempting something going wrong, and I think that is the mentality of where they're at the moment. Is it has become a slog this season. They're very aware that it's become a slog, and that bad things are going to happen to them. And it's like they're almost, rather than just playing with a little bit of enjoyment and freedom and looking like they're really having fun, they're just sort of, like you say, it's not for lack of trying, but they just sort of don't feel like they're that there's any enjoyment there at the moment, and that is the worry. And I also think as well, the fact that now they are in a battle for fourth, that is where the season is. Alexis McAllister gives an interview ahead of the Fulham game, and he basically says we're out of the title race, which again, people can have different opinions on that. I don't mind players saying that, because realistically that is where we are. I don't think there's any point in having blind faith and saying, well, we could still come into this. But people would argue that a player shouldn't be saying that. When it's still feasibly possible that Liverpool could win the title, however unlikely, players shouldn't be saying that. Like I say, I don't mind it. But I just think as well, that mentality of a lot of these players are used to fighting for the league. That's what they were used to last season. A lot of the players who came into the club, that's what they expected to be doing this season. And it's almost like, I think even, at this level, 1%, 2%, 3% drop off can have a massive effect mentally. And I think that has maybe had a little bit of an impact as well, is struggling to sort of reconcile with where the club is at the moment.
As part of that, Ian, getting into some individual performances, what I thought was interesting, and again, this is back to the idea of a bit of a slog, it's not Wirtz's best Liverpool performance. It's possibly not his best 3 or 4, but he's consistently getting himself and keeping himself in the game, keeping himself involved, and in the end he gets a goal. He shows real fight, and that's what you want. You want to be able to say that. There's good times where you say it's great that these players are showing real fight, and this is why it's great. Here there is just a little bit of a thing where, he's showed real fight to go with the quality that we know he's got. It's great he gets a goal. It's all very good, but you still come away from it feeling a bit like, I'd like a bit more Florian Wirtz, please. I'd like to know what it's meant to be for him.
Yeah, well, I'd like to know who he's supposed to be passing to. And I mean, obviously, yesterday that's a little bit difficult because he's got a lad playing in front of him who's never played in front of him before. So it's like, who is his man to give the ball to? What is the move that he's expected to pull off? I think he's a brilliant footballer. I absolutely love him. I love watching him. I've loved watching him since day one, when people were giving him sticks with all this 007 shite that people were pulling on him. It's like, no, watch football, people do other things, people actually run games without actually getting an assist, and assists are down to the lad putting in the back of the net as well. I think he's a magnificent footballer. I think he sees things on the pitch that nobody else is seeing, except for there was a fantastic vertical ball that Curtis played yesterday that gave Gakpo that first chance he put wide. Absolutely beautiful ball right through the midfield. But Wirtz is playing things around corners. He's moving all the time. He wants the ball all the time. He's got the right attitude to be there. It's just, where is it there that he's supposed to be, and what is the plan for the people in front of him? We don't know what our team looks like this season. I don't think we're going to know what our team's supposed to look like at any point this season, because we won't see Isak until April. So we aren't the team we're supposed to be. So we don't know. Everything is making, doing, mending, and it's kind of like, it's putting out fires at the moment all over the place. But Florian Wirtz, I think, as long as he's not put off by his first season with us, he's going to be with us a long time. He's going to be an excellent footballer. He's a very, very... I think he's one of the most intelligent footballers in the league.
Ian there says, we've seen him run the game. I don't think he does that yesterday. And I don't mean, is there a game there for him to run? Is almost part of this. Like, what do we actually think that would have looked like? I'm looking at him, and I think at his best, he runs games. But I think it's easier to run games if you've got not just one option, who, as Ian says, you've never played with before, at centre forward in front of you, but you've got 2 options, or even 3. Yesterday I thought was a great example of Wirtz ends up being part of the congestion and not alleviating the congestion that Liverpool have created.
Yeah, I think I wasn't as impressed as you were yesterday. It sounds like you thought he played quite well.
I think he just battles and gets a goal.
Yeah,
which genuinely is.
Listen, I mean, the goal obviously is huge. Looked offside at first glance, I have to say.
Looks offside at every glance.
I've looked at it again, still offside.
The only person to ever celebrate on the automated system.
But I'll take it. They mentioned about the tolerance, didn't they, in the lines and stuff. Yeah. But it feels like they've been chalking off others that have been slightly tighter than that, but as I say, I'll take it all day long. But I didn't think he was great against Leeds, and I thought he was okay yesterday. Now, there's mitigation for all the stuff he had said there. You know, it's tough in terms of who he's playing with, and he probably didn't sign up for quite this. But I go back to, I'd love to have been a fly on the wall when they sold the vision to Florian Wirtz, because by all accounts, the manager, head coach, was great in those conversations and those discussions. So what was the plan? What did they lay out to him? Because I've seen Liverpool this season quite a lot of times not look like they know what they're doing with Florian Wirtz. And that's not necessarily down to him. You know, I feel a little bit sorry for him at times. And I do think he showed moments and flashes, and in certain games he's been really, really good. I know you've noticed the lack of physicality, but I absolutely believe he will be a stellar player for Liverpool Football Club. I've got no doubts really on that. But what was the plan? Because they've chopped and changed it a lot. You know, they've played him on the left, they've played him as part of a midfield, they've played him off a front man, they've played him at certain times, dropped him at other times. So it's hard to know really what the plan was, because I've not really seen it. And I think you could say that about a lot of what Liverpool have done this season. You know, I have got like sympathy with the manager around some of the things you laid out. I have, but also I think he's got to have been better in lots of parts of the season. You know, some of those games where they're getting beat and they're playing Forest at home, who beat them 3-0. Forest are the second lowest scorers in the league, by the way. They come to Anfield and score 3 goals. Liverpool have got a really strong team out that day, and they have got players on the bench who can come on and affect the football match. Ekitike's on the bench against Forest. It's a really strong side. All right, so Bosley's playing right back. 2 centre-halves, Kirk is left back, Gavin Birch, McAllister, Jones in the middle. It's Salah, it's Gakpo, it's Isak against Forest. Ekitike's on the bench. Against PSV, it changes slightly, goalkeeper changes, and then Ekitike comes in for Isak, who's on the bench against PSV. These are strong Liverpool 11s with some bench options, not as many as he wants, but some bench options. And he's fallen short in those games. So now I'm looking at it and there's less players. And I'm thinking, fucking hell, now there's less players. But we weren't great when there was more players. So, and there was no real plan then either, in terms of how you're getting the best out of some of these footballers. You know, I don't think Isak's ever really been fit. Liverpool have took a collective gamble, I think, on that. They've took a gamble on it. So far it hasn't worked out. I've always been of the belief that I think he'll come good. But it feels like Liverpool at times when they've been planning some of this stuff, they've been planning for stuff in the medium to long term, and they've forgotten about the fucking hear it now. They're hearing now, boys. You've forgotten about that bit, haven't you? Because it doesn't look like it's working, and that's where I am a little bit concerned. And like you, I like the manager. I've been on these shows and I've said I want to see him given the time. And I said before, he might get fourth and still find himself out of a job. He might. It'll depend how the season goes and what happens and how they look and all that. But because of what he did last season, and maybe it's a little bit of me being sentimental, but that meant a lot to me for different reasons. Yeah. But got to experience it with my dad and our kid. And you know, I was there in 1990 when they won the league, but our kid wouldn't have been. He was too small, and I was only a young boy myself. But that meant something. So that carries a lot of weight with me, that he's been part of that. So that does mean a lot. So you give him a little bit of grace, you give him a lot of grace maybe, but you don't get a free pass. You don't get to just not perform for months on end, and you get to stay as Liverpool manager. He will know that. That doesn't happen. It can't happen. And I like him. And listen, they're not going to do anything now because they're halfway through the season, more than halfway through the season, and the job is to get fourth. It's to get fourth, really. And they're up against 2 teams, probably in Chelsea and Man U, who haven't even got a manager, and they're already ahead of them by 3 points. So he should be getting fourth. As a minimum now, he should be getting fourth. And if he falls short of that, then he will find himself out of a job. But there would have been times where after PSV, if they'd have pulled the trigger, I think a lot of people would have gone, you know what, it hasn't been great. And therefore, you live and die by your results. But he's battled on. But I think now, what we do need to see, and it'll be things like, you know, seeing Wirtz, where it's not necessarily having to be built around them, but it looks like there's a plan with him.
I think on that, Beth, I think on what won't have been sold to Wirtz and what is not the plan is 1 ahead and 4 behind. Yeah. I think the ideal for a game like Fulham away, I don't want to, there's more bigger and more muscular teams in the Premier League, more direct sides, where maybe you might say either for Florian or in general, it's 2 ahead and 3 behind for this one, or you're on the bench for this one. You know, there's other games, away games in particular, where you can come to that conclusion, especially in his first year. But the plan will not have been 1 ahead and 4 behind. And that, to me, as I say, I don't think he plays well. Yes, that was what I was saying. I think it's all congested, and he just becomes part of the congestion. But what he does is he gets a goal. You know what I mean? He doesn't run the game, but he gets a goal.
Takes it well.
And takes it well in the moment. But I think this is the key thing. And if you want to talk about how this becomes a bit less of a slog, I think it's Florian Wirtz has a bit more space and he's got more players ahead of him. That's it. That's your direction. That's a key way you make this more enjoyable. Again, not Thursday. But when you get from that point onwards, I think that's the big thing the manager's got to do, is get back to where Florian can run the game, and when he looks up, he's got 1 option, 2 options, 3 options. Christ, a fullback comes, 4 options. Imagine it. What a time to be alive. And then he can start to deliver. And I think that's the next phase of this. But we've got to show some willingness to get there.
Yeah, and I think that is probably the most valid frustration and criticism that you can have of the manager, is that if Liverpool weren't getting results, but you could see these patterns of play, and you could see, well, actually, I can understand why Wirtz has been brought in. I can understand why these players have been signed. You can see that where everyone's back fit, there will be a Liverpool team there. Then you'd say, right, it's frustrating, results are frustrating. I'm sure he'd still be getting lots of stick, but you'd say you can see what he's doing, you can see what he's building, and you can see how it's going to get better. And I think the worry at the moment is that you can't quite see how it's going to get better without another 2 or 3 signings, which, you know, don't necessarily look like they're going to come this month. So I think with Wirtz, I mean, obviously we don't know. We weren't in the room when those conversations happened, but I think the plan was probably to play him as the most advanced midfielder, whether that be as a number 10, whether that be as, you know, in a 4-3-3 as the most advanced, with 3 ahead of him. And I think that plan has changed slightly because it has taken him a little bit of time to get up to the physicality of the league. I think that the direction of travel in terms of how physical the league is hasn't suited him, has made his life a little bit harder, and therefore, you know, Liverpool, with how bad they've been all over the pitch defensively, Slot has had to say, well, right, we want him to play, but we can't risk having him in midfield alongside Allister, whose legs have gone, because alongside Salah, who's maybe not going to track back. So the compromise has been, well, he'll play, but he'll play further forward. I still think the plan will be to have him as more of a midfielder than as a winger or a forward. And, you know, maybe if once he does get fully up to speed with the physicality of the league, when he's got maybe...
You've seen him get better.
Yeah.
You've seen him get better now, and I thought that was part of yesterday's positive.
There was a moment in the game, I think it was against Brighton, and he gets... he shrugs, or was it Wolves? I can't remember. It was a home game, and he shrugs someone off and keeps hold of the ball. And I remember thinking, if this was a month ago, he'd have lost that ball so easily. And I think you can see more moments like that with him now. So the physicality, you know, he's never going to be a super physical player, but his brain is so quick that I don't think that will hinder him too much. And long term, I have no concerns about him. I think he will be. I agree with everyone. I think he's got all of the ingredients to be a genuine great for Liverpool Football Club if he stays at the club for long enough. I think he's that talented. But I think for the time being, the long-term plan for him, his long-term role has been compromised, because I don't quite think Liverpool and Slot anticipated how tough physically this season would be, and how ill-equipped the team would be physically to deal with the Premier League. And I think his long-term sort of development and, you know, his place in the team has been sacrificed a little bit. But I think now in the second half of the season, in a way, you almost think, well, you've not got an awful lot to lose at the moment. Obviously, you want to get fourth, but, you know, you can afford to lose games and drop points when you go into fourth. It's not a pleasant thing, especially having won the league. You want to win every single game, and these players will want to win every single game. But I think people would be a little bit more forgiving and sympathetic to the manager if you could say, right, you can see what he's doing, you can see what he's building, you can see how, you know, he gets fourth, he's playing better football, in the summer he gets 2 or 3 more signings, and you can see what Liverpool look like at the moment. You can't quite see that.
I think I want to talk about sports like come back from the suspension. Probably at the point when everyone was saying he could do with the rest, Dominic. It's only the second game back. He actually just looks a little bit stuck in the mud to me. And yesterday was a game with a lot of mud to get stuck in, and he very much managed to do it. Still just looks a little bit wobbly, a little bit like he can't quite find his place / space. But then there isn't a lot of space because Liverpool are playing every midfielder they own?
Yeah, I think it's part of the fact that we basically went to 4 midfielders yesterday, and it's kind of like...
Wirtz is a midfield.
Wirtz is a midfield, yeah. and
all centre-mids as well, they're all centre-mids, yeah.
And we were talking about this on the show on Friday, the idea of, well, if Arsenal are going to go 4 centre-backs at the back, we might as well go 4 central midfielders across. Well, let's not do that one again. I really didn't like it. So,
apart from on Thursday.
Everyone's
got to remember Thursday.
Let's just have 6 midfielders and nobody else. And like else there with a 0-0 against the bastards.
5 goalkeepers.
Well, we might
Still
as well.
wouldn't say the effort.
We've got 2 on the bench, so we might as well, you know. It's... He looked lost. He looked like he didn't know the system. He didn't look like there was a system that had been explained to anybody. At his best, he's sure of where he is, and he's arriving late into the box. He's making that run from the right of midfield, and he's breaking into the box the way he was doing all last season. But he can do it from right back as well, and he can invert as a right back. He can play as a right winger. And yesterday, it was kind of like he's probably somewhere in the centre mid, somewhere. But we're not entirely sure because the line doesn't work, and Curtis Jones is kind of left wing, but he's not because Kerkez is in front of him, so he's kind of like not a left back, but he's not a left midfielder, and he's not going into the centre. And I think we're just all over the place. And this is my concern when you're saying, you know, start playing better football, see what the manager can do in another couple of sides. I'm worried about the manager. I'm worried that the manager's literally... I'm worried that we're in a Ranieri situation, that you have this one stellar season, and then the next season it all falls apart and it spirals down because you just cannot get out of the spiral. I think at the moment he looks like Rodgers in his last season. He looks like he's broken by the whole experience. I hope he's not, because I like him. I think he was excellent last season. I think he was brilliant. You know, Klopp didn't win the league with that team. He won the league with that team. He made some very good choices. He made us more controlled. At the moment, we're not controlled. We're not attacking. We're not anything. And somewhere that's within the coaching.
As part of the number of midfielders, as I said before, he's picked 5. Mm-hmm. I think it therefore I've just written down here on the agenda, it says McAllister anonymous. But part of this is, it's difficult to play in midfield if there's 4 other players also playing in midfield. And I said they all want to be centre midfielders. And I think, listen, from game to game, occasionally this can work. I'm not saying it can't work as a tactical choice. It worked at Inter Milan. Again, it's what I would be doing on Thursday. I think it's Liverpool's best way home on Thursday. But game in, game out, I just think you get to the point where none of these midfielders have genuine clarity about, this is what I'm here to go and do. And McAllister was, like Szoboszlai, just anonymous. You'd probably just give him 6 out of 10 because you've got to say something.
Yeah, but unlike Szoboszlai, McAllister's had a really, really bad season. And I'm more generous towards Dominic Szoboszlai because he's been Liverpool's best player by an absolute mile across the course of the campaign. So, listen, he's had 2 games where it hasn't quite looked like it did previous to that, but I can forgive him for that. Would I have liked it to have been better yesterday? Of course. But McAllister's a worry. He's a worry. It's January now, and you can't keep saying he doesn't look fit, or, you know, he's missed a pre-season. It's January. It's fucking January. So you can miss pre-seasons, and I know every player is different. I remember Carragher saying something about his own experience of where, you know, he's broken a leg and missed a longer period than pre-season, and he still got back to fitness relatively quickly through the games and stuff, even when there's not been loads and loads of training time. And he's played in campaigns where it's 65, nearly 70 games a season. And I know every player's different, but you would expect by now for McAllister to look a little bit like his old self again. And he's just not. I mean, there's been the odd game, but it really is the odd game where you've thought, Alexis looks all right. And it's really been just all right.
And in bits.
Yeah, and it's in bits. You're not really kind of saying...
Apart from Real Madrid, where he actually looked very good.
Yeah. And maybe he's got a high move there, I don't know. Yeah. They all play well against Real Madrid. So maybe there's something. I don't know. But it's been disappointing. But I agree with you in terms of Thursday. I know we're going to get to it a bit. Play them all. Play all the midfielders because they're going to have to. And hopefully Hugo Ekitike can lead the line. Because if they're going to get anything out of that, and it's a big if, I think they are going to need to go back to the wall a little bit.
I think with McAllister, my worry for a while actually, and it's sort of been consolidated from an interview that he did this week. Again, I think it was with Sky, and he basically said something along the lines of, there's been too much change.
We made too many changes.
We made too many changes, but I prefer to keep that to myself.
Yeah. Was that genuine, was it? Because I've seen that mentioned online, but I've not seen anywhere where it...
I've not seen video of it. I've seen it. So it could well be AI.
No, you're probably right.
But if you prefer to keep it to yourself, keep that bit to yourself as well.
When players start saying cryptic things like that, you do think like... and I was at the West Ham game in... When was that? November?
November.
Feels like a lifetime ago.
I think it's the 30th of November.
Yeah, and McAllister was good enough to stop in the mix zone after the game and spoke, really eloquent, really nice guy whenever you have any dealings with him. But he sort of, I remember he got asked, obviously, it's a win and it was a good win. Isak had scored his first goal. It felt like, a little bit of positivity, a little bit of lightness. And I just thought from the way he spoke, he sort of seemed still quite frustrated, and he said something like, it doesn't necessarily mean anything. And he got asked about his fitness, and he said, he basically said, I've been fit for a long time now, and people say I'm not fit, and it just, to me, he sort of seemed like he wasn't quite happy. And that was, like I say, that was in November, so there's been some more time, some more results, some more games where he's been on the bench. And listen, that might be a big part of it because he has been on the bench this season. He was sort of an ever-present, wasn't he, last season and in the season before under Klopp. And I think, I'm not sure anyone could argue that he deserves to be playing more minutes than he's played this season because he has been poor. And maybe that is something that's been hard for him to reconcile with. But I just sort of feel like mentally he's not seemed like he is as bought in to things as you would like a player who's starting most weeks for you to be. And again, that's my personal opinion. That's not with any sort of insight or anything like that. But I think he's a worry for me because I sort of think if mentally you're not feeling fully like you're at the races, then that's going to impact on your performances a little bit as well.
I guess like a few of them might be maybe thinking similar things, just little bits you pick up, but the churn points and that was always my concern. Like you do kind of sometimes feel a little bit hypocritical because you want more players because you think they're short in certain areas. But over the summer, I was also saying to myself, a lot of churn this, it's going to be it's a lot to kind of embed so many footballers in one go, so it all feels like it's still connected and there's a plan and stuff. So I can imagine others are maybe just missing one or two lads who've left and maybe they felt they should still be here. But I know some of those conversations have been difficult with certain footballers because they've made it clear they want to go or, good money's come in for them and stuff like that. But yeah, I think there's probably a couple who are feeling similar.
Well, I think even with the McAllister, the point that he commented on Darwin Núñez's Instagram post the other day saying like, something like, oh, I never thought I'd miss you, but I really do, or something like that.
Yeah,
and I thought...
I'd kept the first bit of that to myself as well.
But
Salah said it, didn't he, to that post when he said about, have respect for the lads who've been there and won it.
And I do think those sort of comments really do show that this is a squad very much in transition. There's some players who are probably thinking, I wish Luis Diaz was still here, both for his impact on the pitch and in the dressing room as well. But the new lads have come in and they'll be wanting to make an impact. So I think it is very much still a squad that doesn't quite know where they're at the moment.
Interestingly, on the back of like Neil's kind of post-match stuff last night, what he was saying, I was thinking about the manager and kind of the strategy and the policy and stuff. And we watch a lot of the press conferences because we do the pre-match warm-up show and you're on that with me every week. And before, I went and checked it, before the Villa one, he gets asked about the squad. Because after they got beat by Palace, and he rest all the lads. And he says something a little bit, just alluding to the fact that the depth isn't quite there. And he talks a little bit about Chelsea, well, Liverpool play Chelsea, they're missing 8 players in a day, but he's still the rest about to come in. Obviously, they win the game. But then he says to the journalist at the Aston Villa press conference, I'm glad you've asked me about that, because I want to make it clear that I'm really happy with the quality that we've got at the club right now. And then he also says, we're missing nothing. He talks a little bit about when players miss pre-season, that can be a bit of a problem. But he says, what we did last season was we kept them all fit. And we've not been able to do that this time. And he actually says, word for word, maybe I'm paraphrasing slightly, I'm happy with the strategy and I'm happy with the policy that we've got around recruitment. Whether he's being genuine or not, I don't know, but he's saying it.
Yeah.
He's saying it in a press conference. So I think they've all signed up to something. Maybe they've all gambled a little bit on certain things and they've maybe thought, we can keep most of these lads fit, because the manager also says, ideally, I want 20 to 21. That's what I want. But the problem is, if you get 3 or 4 injuries, you're down to 15, 16, 17, whatever, and then it's a bit more of a problem. But I think they've backed themselves maybe to keep the likes of an Isak going. And obviously, you don't know he's going to get a broken leg, but maybe they thought they could get him back fitter a bit quicker than they could. Maybe they thought, they've gambled with the likes of Wirtz and Atkinson, thought we can get them up to speed faster, and they will be able to play 90 minutes. Blows my fucking mind, by the way, that there's players, and it's not just the new lads, who don't look fit, who don't look like they can play a full 90. And some of them are players who've been there a long time. So I've got a question around what they've done in terms of prep. And I know the pre-season was disrupted, and I've got loads of sympathy.
Well, I think there's a big part of it. I think that is a big part.
But again, you're in January now, and I'm still seeing footballers who aren't fully fit, and that's probably at the manager's door, and that's a bit of a worry.
I think that does fall at the manager's door, but I think simultaneously, I think in general it is a model about pre-season, but this also throws back to the idea of the schedule. There is no give.
Yeah.
There is no give.
But the first 2 weeks of the season was because we were playing once a week. But there was plenty of time for training then.
There was, but I think that becomes the long pre-season. But in that instance, for instance, by the time we get to the end of the game against Bournemouth, we've got no right-backs.
No.
And you would say that neither right-back has managed to genuinely establish a run of games and fitness yet. So again, the long pre-season where they're not... Isak's nowhere near the club. No. Still, that's in there. McAllister's a mess. That's in there. You know what I mean? You can go on down this list of X isn't right, Y isn't right in the long pre-season. There's no give in the schedule. This, to me, is the thing that I think is...
by the time he gets the players back in, we are in the absolutely...
Beth sat in the press conferences where the manager has said, the thing that you've got to understand is that with Isak, and this is the bit that's driven me mad in a way, really got in my head, and I can't get it out of my head, is he said, what you've got to acknowledge is that with Isak, if he doesn't have a pre-season, we knew that he didn't have a pre-season, and he's not played a game for 4 or 5 months. So we always knew that this would be difficult. At which point, I think it's really valid to say, so you knew it was going to be difficult.
Yeah.
So what's the plan? What was the plan? Other than just sort of saying, well, it's difficult. To me, that's not a plan. Totally that's for him and that's for everyone else at the club to sort of work through. But I do think, I think that now, the way the game is now, and I think it was a little bit different even when Carragher was playing, and he does play in seasons with loads of games. But the way the game is now, I just think they're so beholden to summers, to how pre-seasons go. And I think in a really weird way, even though it's a bit more disrupted with players coming back from international duty, I think the manager's first pre-season couldn't have gone smoother. And I think we were all saying that by the time around the first game came back. It felt like every player came back and players were drip fed in, but he had Salah all the way through. And I felt like that seemed really important to have created their bond. And then, suddenly Virgil's back, but Virgil's already got a bond with the manager and the players. I feel as though this season, and there's the one obvious massive, my God, reason why, I think it's become, the manager might look back, he might do 20 seasons of management. And when he's asked when he's 63, what was your hardest ever pre-season? You'll say that one.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. And I think that's... Yeah. But I simultaneously agree with you, and I also agree with the wider lads. I just quite like to look forward to watching Liverpool play footy.
And also,
can we sort that out?
Listen, we've beaten them over the head a lot at different times, but I will always go back to what he does in terms of winning the league. But how he handled that situation with respect and dignity, he couldn't have done it any better. The situation you're talking about there with Jota, he was unbelievable in terms of how he handled that, and he deserves huge credit for it. But you talk about pre-seasons there, but don't forget next summer you get the World Cup.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be hard to sign players. That's why I'm thinking they will make moves in January. Surely they'll maybe get at least 1 or 2 in, because it's going to be really hard next summer to get people in, given the short window and having time with them and all that stuff. But seemingly that doesn't seem on the cards at the moment.
I think this, it's almost a separate conversation at the minute, but I think the January window's dead interesting in that I thought there'd be loads of action and there hasn't been any meaningful yet. Even West Ham.
Salmon hasn't gone yet.
Salmon hasn't gone yet. Even West Ham haven't bought a striker in yet, and that was much vaunted. I just sort of wonder if all hell breaks loose after this next game, this patch of games, because then it's the cup and you've almost got a 10-day run into the game, the following game week, and everyone's almost had the idea of, listen, we've all got enough on our plate at the minute going game to game, we need a bit of space and then we're going to sort that out. Could be, but as you say, Semenyo hasn't gone yet, and I think everyone thought Semenyo would go somewhere on the first.
Well, we were expecting that Boxing Day, basically, weren't we?
All right, new feature, new year, new me, etc, etc. Album of the week, just thought I'd throw it in, see how we get on. Great Lakes, don't swim too close, quite REM styles, small American band, quite that sort of classic alternative American rock style music. So I'm nothing too challenging week one. I'm not hitting you with some hyper pop, that's to come. Great Lakes, don't swim too close. I think you'll enjoy it. Next week I'm not hosting the Anfield Wrap after Liverpool play Barnsley. Beth Lindop is, so she will nominate next week's album of the week, something for everyone to look forward to. She's on week 2. The only rule's going to be it needs to come out in about 6 months. Got about 6 months.
I have one in mind, but I'm sort of thinking I don't know if it falls within the 6-month window. So
if it's 7, we'll be all right.
I'll have to go back and do my research.
Okay, well this was October. This came out in October. Great Lakes.
Okay, I think I'll be all right then.
Great Lakes, don't swim too close.
Is it wrong to add it to me Apple Music now?
You do it whenever you're ready.
You can tell her Red's a shite, can't you?
Sorry?
You can tell her Red's a shite.
I just thought
talking about music.
30 seconds. 30 seconds. Are you bored of 30 seconds? It was.
Absolutely.
We all need a bit of joy.
We all need something.
Nick your pen.
Yeah, you can nick my pen. Go and write it down. I'll bring it there as well if you want. Just take a picture. Great Lakes, don't swim too close. Let's talk about Arsenal away.
You had me at REM.
There we go. Let's talk about Arsenal away.
Can we talk about the music again?
It's fascinating. I think the last 3 times we've gone there, it's been the moment where a draw. We've been in a bit of a moment. They've been in a bit of a moment. The game's felt like it's got a lot riding on it. Beyond just the idea of 2 sides who expect to finish in the Champions League places playing each other. This is the case now. I think a win against us for them, given what they've done in the last 2 and given what City have done, would be absolutely huge. I reckon we're going in there, it's going to be absolutely bouncing. I think for us a draw is always all right, going away to a Champions League team with the possible exception of Tottenham Hotspur, because they don't count. But we seem to get swept into games against these that feel like rambunctious nights of the soul in a way that maybe some other sides don't. Last season I think it was a massive result when Trent Alexander-Arnold fed Darwin Núñez and Darwin Núñez fed Mo Salah. I'll tell you what, little heart palpitation there. And Liverpool made it 2-2. It felt like it was massive. I think Liverpool are 9 unbeaten. I think anything that got Liverpool to 10 unbeaten you'd grab with both hands.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think on the face of it, looking at it kind of now and kind of, thinking about what that game might look like, it's hard to really make a case for Liverpool getting anything. But football is strange, and sometimes you get more than you deserve. But yeah, it's hard to think about how Liverpool go there and City get a win. I can't envisage it at all, to be honest. But again, football is weird at times. But you'd have to say Arsenal are the favourites, and they're going to fancy it. And I think, given last season and the fact that they are so short, and that maybe Liverpool were viewed as the big contenders along with them this season, they'll be massively up for it. They've got a huge gap now at the top. It's a huge gap. It's a decent gap above City. The 14 cleared at Liverpool, which is massive. So that can go to 17. But Liverpool aren't even in the conversation. Liverpool just need to now just look at what they're doing versus what United are doing and what Chelsea are doing. And as I said before, neither of those teams have a manager as it stands. So tough game on Thursday. Do I see us getting anything out of it? It's doubtful, but maybe if they play the right side, they could maybe get a point and make it really awkward for Arsenal. I think Arsenal will. Watching a lot of their games this season, not much happens in the first 30. You said that on shows as well, and it's really apparent to me.
I wonder if this one might be a bit different for that.
I think, because of all the things I've said, I think they'll start it much faster, and Liverpool have to be prepared for that. And that's before you get to things like the set pieces and all that kind of stuff, which we know how good they are at that. Liverpool are incredibly bad at that kind of stuff. So loads of things point to an Arsenal win, but we'll have to wait and see.
First and foremost, I think this in general, I've long said this, I think people worry too much about banter. Football doesn't stop. There will be another season next season. I'll keep saying it. You go back to March of this year, Arteta was on the verge of becoming a bit of a figure of fun in terms of what he was saying in press conferences. Now he sits top of the pile, Beth, and as I say, football doesn't stop. You've got to always accept that. Maybe if an asteroid was about to hit Earth, the one thing I'd want is Alex Ferguson to ring up Kenny Dalglish and say, all right, you've won. But apart from that, football doesn't stop, and Liverpool will come again. Arsenal, though, at the minute, to me, do look like the best team in the country. It's interesting that City, the goals have dried up, which is the one thing I would have thought wouldn't happen in the last 2 games, but the goals have suddenly dried up for them. That means that in the round, Arsenal right now, it's a good result against Brighton. It's a very good result with the way the game goes against Bournemouth. And they've got that cushion, they've got that security. And if you've got the cushion, you've got the security, and you think you're the best team, then your ground is the most difficult one to go to in the country.
Yeah, they are comfortably, I think, the best side in the country, and that has been a product of building a squad and building an identity, you know, maybe perhaps most importantly for a number of years. And I think, you know, you go back to the way that they built their squad in the summer. Again, it was sort of the antithesis to what Liverpool did, in the sense they added to what they already had. And you look at the bench at Bournemouth and you think it was Saka, Jesus, you know, there's some real quality on that bench, and they've got a really strong 11 out as well. And they have the best squad in, possibly even in Europe, when you look at in terms of the depth, the quality of the depth. I think you said it right last night, in terms of like the real elite players. You know, you still look at the likes of Madueke or Martinelli or Trossard, and you think, well, they're not in the elite, but they're at a very high level, and they've got a lot of those players across the squad. Defensively, they are outstanding. So yeah, they are. And listen, like you say, it's one of those things. It's banter, isn't it? That I think a lot of people are scared of these days. They're scared of having to go on social media and sort of take back what they've given out to Arsenal fans. But that is the way of the world. And listen, the way that they have played, the way that they've built the squad, yes, they've spent a lot of money, but the way they've stuck behind the manager and believed in what he's doing deserves credit. If they win this season, they will fully have deserved to win it. You know, we can all sit here and moan and say, well, they should be playing more expansive football. They've scored a lot of set pieces. They've been the best team in the country so far. If they don't win it, it'll be because of either an injury crisis or a spectacular implosion, which I just don't really see happening.
Or the sort of run from City that the last two games further increases your doubt that they're capable of putting together at the minute.
Yeah.
You know, because the City sides in the past that you've seen go 18 of the last 20. But those two last results, I think if you support City now, you're a bit like, I think we're quite good, but we don't look like we're going to suddenly win 11 on the bounce.
And I think the players at the full-time whistle at City last night looked gutted. Now maybe that's just conceding, like, you know, a late equaliser, but they all looked a bit sick, and I think, you know, mentally that's a bit of a blow. Now, if there's any squad, any team, any manager well equipped to deal with that disappointment and come back from it, it is City, because they've got the nous and the experience of doing it. But I think we've spoken a lot about Liverpool's squad depth. City's squad depth isn't great either. Yep. You know, they have another defensive injury, a couple of defensive injuries. Does Diaz go off as well yesterday? Guardiola looked, you know, didn't look like a great one. So I don't think, unless they spend heavily in January, that they've got a particularly deep squad to go on one of those runs, like you say. Arsenal do. But football is a weird game. I think, like you say, I imagine Arsenal will start fast. I think they started pretty fast in the 2-2 last season. Saka scores.
I think the only game I can think of in recent memory where Arsenal have played Liverpool and Arsenal haven't started fast is actually the game at Anfield this season.
Yes.
I think almost every other game, home or away, against them, they've decided to come out fast, and then, I mean, most of those games have not ended up with Arsenal victories, is what I would point out. Certainly the ones at Anfield haven't. But I think you can see a pattern of Arsenal look at Liverpool and think we're going to get at these as quickly as we can and impose ourselves.
And that's a smart approach to take, because I think Liverpool probably start one of the slowest of any teams in the That's probably my biggest frustration with them.
But to be fair, Beth, we also finish slow.
Yeah, they're just slow.
And we're slow in the middle.
They're nothing if not consistent. But yeah, so I think, and I've seen a few things, there's going to be a big tifo, there's going to be a big fan display, and I've seen a few people reply like, you don't even really need to do that. Like, they're over-egging the pudding there a little bit, but the fans will be right up for it. I think the way that Liverpool get anything from it is nicking some sort of early goal and sowing the seeds of doubt, or just staying in it and making it a little bit nervy. And that's when, not necessarily the players, but I think the crowd would start to get a little bit edgy. And that is when, you know, you could see Liverpool getting something.
They obviously have the set pieces, which we mentioned before, and you can tell it's in Liverpool's heads, you know, how they deal with the Fulham throw-in last night, where they're all piling into the box. And I don't think, at times, where I've been frustrated with the league as a whole, really, is that I don't think Arsenal have had to be spectacular to get to the position they're in, and that's what frustrates me. They're not a great watch. They've got good players, don't get me wrong, and they're a good side in terms of they understand their strengths, and their strengths are physicality, along with having some really good technical footballers, no doubt. But when you are watching their games, you never feel like they're about to blow anyone away. And I know they beat Villa comfortably in the end, because I think if you give them an inch, they'll take a fucking mile, no problem.
Well, that's our concern.
They've got good enough players to do that, and that's what could happen to Liverpool. So obviously the set piece thing, we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. Liverpool have obviously made some changes in that area. It still blows my mind a little bit that people were saying set pieces got nothing to do with the manager. I'm thinking, well, you know, he does oversee what goes on the pitch. I understand he has delegated responsibility to a certain person, but he's still accountable, surely, for what goes on the pitch.
His name's above the door for this.
Well, listen, you can delegate responsibility, you can't delegate accountability. And if it's going on the pitch, then I'm sorry, that comes under the manager.
Yeah.
So, you know, it took a long time for them to make that decision, but those set-piece issues have been going on all season. And we'll have to see how Liverpool handle it on Thursday night, because there's no doubt Arsenal straight away will be thinking, right, throw-ins, corners, free kicks, put Liverpool under pressure, see how they deal with it. They'll be going down easily, I imagine, as well. You know, they've got a lot of players who feel like they'll go down, win a free kick, buy a free kick. You've got to be prepared for all of that. But, you know, Liverpool aren't going to be judged on what happens on Thursday, because we know we're at a really bad spot at the minute. But that said, you still want to see them go there and put up some kind of fight.
Ian, I'll just name what I think the team will be. Allister in goal, he's good. Conor Bradley, Ibu Konate, Virgil van Dijk, Milos Kerkez, Ryan Gravenberch, Dominic Szoboszlai, Curtis Jones, Alexis McAllister, Florian Wirtz, and Hugo Ekitike. That's what I think Liverpool's 11 will be.
I would have one change.
Fitness permitting. What in terms of what you think it will be, or what you would do?
In terms of what I think, both. I think there's a very good argument to drop McAllister out of it because he's ineffectual at the moment, and put Frimpong on the right and go 4-3-3 and give them something to worry about a little bit.
Okay.
Because we were more 4-3-3 against them at home. At home, when we played them, we weren't in a good position. We were winning. We were winning with last-minute goals, but we weren't deserving to be winning. We weren't playing well. We were a better team than us at the time.
So maybe Frimpong as an outball,
Maybe Frimpong as an outball, because the thing we were missing yesterday was an outball of any kind. So that gives you another outball, gets you up the pitch. And he's defensively minded, so you've just strengthened your right and you've moved Szoboszlai back into the middle, the right of the middle. I think it could be a lot stronger that way.
But the point is that all those players, whether it's Frimpong, whether it's McAllister, at least theoretically, they're good players.
Yeah.
You know, and Liverpool are going into this game, they will pick 11 good players. Yeah. They may not have tons of options coming from the bench. There is the question over starting slow and ending slow. You know, genuinely, that is a thing here around that sort of wider fitness question. But these are good players, these are very good players, and I think that needs to be borne in mind. For me, there's a couple of worries, which is, you give them an inch, they take a mile, which is last season, City go there, not in a great moment, play pretty well for an hour, pull it back to 1-1, and they end up losing 5-1, and that was an Arsenal side that was going to go on and finish second, not one who's favourites to go on and finish first. You know, I think that there is that feeling that things can go wrong, but they can also go right, and things do happen in football. The side I've just named, a number of them play it into Milan. Yeah. And win 1-0, you know, and win 1-0.
And we hold them at bay at Anfield and gloriously score from a set piece.
So let's, you know, for me, I think you've got to do the cautionary tale. You've got to have a ton of respect. You've got to say we're going in second favourites. But we're not going in with a team of fucking divvies.
No, they are good footballers. And the problem at the moment is we have good footballers, but none of them are actually in a good moment, really. And our shape isn't good, and there's something wrong with the totality of what we are. There's something holistically wrong with us. But we have enough players to actually pull something off. And that team should be higher in the league than it is. It should be playing better than it is because there are enough good players there. And we know we've got people who can score goals. We know we've got people who can create, but they're not doing it. So we can go to Arsenal. We've proved that we can play Arsenal already this season and beat them. We've proved that we can do that. Use that game plan. See where that gets us. And because we're the away team, go there. Because we had, I think, 30% possession against Arsenal or something stupid at home. We ceded possession to them, didn't we?
It was a really weird game. I think it was defined by their choice, which was to look after the ball but not be very attacking. They barely have an attack.
But that's what they do a lot, isn't it?
They won't make that mistake again, I don't think.
No,
I don't think they'll treat Liverpool how they treated them in August.
No.
They'll know there's a wound at
They know
they'll smell blood, and I think...
But you could see we were weak in August as well because we weren't playing well at that point.
10 unbeaten?
I don't know. I doubt it.
No.
I doubt it. Listen, they're on this unbeaten run, and listen, there's a lot to be said for unbeaten runs, but it might be the most depressing unbeaten run I've ever witnessed. To be honest, listen, as where we were a few months ago, you just wanted to stay, obviously unbeaten, not concede loads of goals, but it's not an unbeaten run that you can massively get behind at the minute because of the way they're playing and stuff.
There's no fun.
And there's no fun. And it is at times, it is boring to watch. Liverpool aren't entertaining, they're not exciting.
But you'll take a boring 0-0 on
but
Thursday.
But I'll take a boring 0-0 on Thursday and just get out of Dodge and hopefully, keep that unbeaten run going to 10.
10 unbeaten?
I wouldn't put my house on it.
What would you put on it?
Your house.
No, you know what?
Chester draws should be meant to recycle.
I have a weird. I said to Ian earlier. I have a weird feeling that they could get something. I think they either get something or get absolutely flattened. I don't think there's a world where Arsenal win it 2-1 or 1-0. I think Arsenal either win it comfortably or Liverpool frustrate them and get something. That's my prediction.
Okay, 10 unbeaten.
I can't see it. I think there's a world where we get absolutely battered in this because they're just so much better than we are at the moment. But I'm hoping for the most boring 0-0 up until the 85th minute and we score from nowhere.
From a set piece.
Yeah, from a set piece ideally.
I think that there's, I think it's a really weird one, and I think there's a lot of possible outcomes. Obviously there is, this is a ludicrous thing to say. I think that, to Beth's point though, I think there is a world where actually it's, you know, there's tons of parallels. There's the away cup game. You know, there's tons of parallel sorts of things where, you know, we suffer a lot in that early, hang on for dear life, get a bit of luck, and then second half are actually as good as them, and then we go on and we are actually better as that game crests to a finale. But I think there's a little universe where they come at us, we see it off, everyone gets into half time, they regroup, they come at us, we see it off, but then they do get one on 75, and then they go into complete horrible Arsenal mode of this is finished, don't even think about it. And there's maybe a little bit where Liverpool are like, well, it's only 1-0 here, and you know, there's worse things happen at sea, and then we go from there. I think that's how that version happens, if you see what I mean. I think if Arsenal scored in the first 30 minutes, then I think all hell could break loose from a Liverpool point of view if you're not careful. And I don't think Arsenal will make the mistake either of starting slow or, which is what they do last season when we go there. I know they have a couple of injury issues, but second, they're much the better side first half, and they come out second half and act like the crap, and they need to hang on for dear life, and they don't go at Liverpool, and I think that they won't make that mistake again either. So I think that, you know, for me it's massively important Liverpool don't concede an early goal, and if they don't, then I think you are then in the realms of all bets are off. Anything's possible. I think if Arsenal score in the first half an hour, Liverpool are getting beat. I just don't quite see how Liverpool turn around in the first half an hour Arsenal goal, is what I think. All right then, excellent stuff all round. Thought everyone did very, very well under the circumstances, difficult though they are. My favourite thing about yesterday's game, by the way, was the lip reading of how convinced Harry Wilson was that he was off. Well off, off. That's the Harry, well off, over and over again. To anyone who asked, seems like a lovely lad, by the way, chatting away to everyone. Well off, mate, don't worry about it.
He's playing well as well.
Well, he's playing brilliantly. Strikes a ball gorgeous as well, doesn't he?
Would have been very useful to have in our side.
We can't start second guessing that one from 7 years ago. Not even I can go
Let's
there.
go
Ian.
for it.
Don't clip me up. Thank you very much, Beth, Ian, and Ian. Thanks a lot for Tom behind the scenes on the sound, and Jordan as well behind the massive light. We can't even see him. He's over there somewhere. We'll see you later on and see how we all get on after Thursday.